Howdy folks, thanks for tuning in. Hope y'all doing okay today. Sorry it's been a minute since the last time I've been on, but I wanted to share just some facts with you about me over the past 21 months of the pandemic now that we've been in. So I gotta start off by explaining that once I turned 18, I was constantly employed. I may have had part-time jobs where I was side hustling more. There was one summer that I took off from my 9 to 5 to work for myself because I was making more money the way I had the business set up and what I was getting paid then. But I was always working and employed. And there was one time, sparing you the details of it, but essentially I got my services were no longer required at a job. And I ended up getting another job before my previous place of employment could deny my unemployment claim. So I've always been working since I was 18. Now, that said, in the past, from March of 2020 to today's December of 21, so that's 21 months. In the past 21 months, I have missed more work in that amount of time than I have ever missed in my life. Now, I will say that a part of that is at my job. As you're there, you do accumulate more time off as you go. And our time off is use it or it gets paid out at the end of the year for that. So it doesn't accumulate. So I'd rather have the time off than, getting taxed double on a paycheck, so I just take the time off. So with that in mind, I've had the ability to take off some extra days that I want when I want. Sorry, my windshield's filthy, folks. I've had the ability to take some time off that I want when I want, using vacation days here and there sporadically to take some time off to do the things I want to do, which is nice. Well, anyway, that's not the lion's share of it, though. The lion's share of it is back between March and May of 2020. I think it was middle of March to start of May. I was off for about 6 weeks, laid off on unemployment. During that time on unemployment, the Kentucky unemployment system was so backed up, they couldn't keep up. So it kind of happened at a good time of the year for me to have that happen. Taxes just come in. There's a bonus that I get at work that hits right around that time. So I did have money in the bank, and my wife had just started working, thankfully, and she was deemed an essential. But every week I'm watching a bill that has to come out of the bank, and the account balance just stair-stepping downward. My wife will work, claw back some of that, and then stair-stepping down again. So it definitely was a little interesting. I finally was able to get all my unemployment sorted out, get my back pay on unemployment sorted out, and I was making my take-home pay, staying home, doing nothing. So, and then I've had several layoffs since then, a week layoff here, 2 weeks here, for whatever reasons you can imagine working in a big factory, from, hey, the vendors aren't getting us the parts we need, there's supply chain bottlenecks here. The Ever Given is got the Suez Canal backed up and some of our stuff's in there. The Texas power grid disruption that shut down all the stuff over January, February this year. A lot of our seat foam was manufactured there. That got shut down. The petroleum problems out of Texas with that oil pipeline hack. Just on and on and on it goes. And so they'll call a random week off for either the entire plant or this shift. As a matter of fact, my wife, who is now a co-worker, got a call right after her week of orientation, and the whole plant was laid off that week. So it's just been literally one thing after another since we've been there, or since she's been there, and since 2020. And all that time laid off of work hasn't done me any good mentally. I know there's a lot of people that enjoy the time off. I enjoy not having to roll out of bed at 3 in the morning to get to work. But I don't necessarily enjoy the uncertainty that all that brings. You know, that plant's been there since, what, 69, I think? Yeah. And this is some of the worst production issues they've ever had. I will say that I know I do have some form of job security due to the amount of vehicles waiting to be built being higher than I've ever seen it. But it's nerve-wracking to be off work for 6 weeks, not knowing when you're going back, not knowing if you're going back, and knowing that the job market's in complete upheaval, and you're stuck home with 4 kids that are out of school, or worse, the school shuts down and you got to go to work and and have to figure out childcare and all this and that. Now, said all that to say this: COVID is a real thing. My wife and my mother that lives with us had it. My mother, it really was difficult for her. It was one of the more difficult cases I know of that didn't involve hospitalization. She couldn't get up the energy to do anything. She felt terrible. She wasn't eating. She wasn't drinking. She felt bad. It was one of the more difficult cases, like I said, that didn't involve anyone going to the hospital or anything. So she was pretty rough. I'm not disputing that COVID's a real thing. However, I gotta admit, now that the vaccine provides a level of protection against hospitalization and death with Delta and Omicron, which is what we're seeing so far, I don't particularly understand why the government is attempting to do more things. They spent all the money imaginable to keep people afloat in the short term while they're figuring out how to get PPE and things like that. They spent a lot of money on getting these vaccines, and they even basically wrote Pfizer and Moderna and Johnson & Johnson open-ended check. Just, hey, if it doesn't work, we'll pay you for your time and wasted resources anyway. Seems pretty sweet to me. That's like me showing up to someone's yard. Hey, if your mower doesn't work, I'll pay you for your time anyway. Or, hey, if you don't put the trucks together today, I'll pay you for your time anyway. Seems like a sweet deal to me. And thankfully, the vaccines do have a decent amount of effect on serious illness related to COVID. I'm going to have to play the songs of my people here in just a second, folks. This guy in front of me is going a little slow on a 2-lane. But anyway, I don't understand why the government's trying to do all the things now when the death rates, even though the case rates have gone up and down. Gosh, that's fun. I don't understand why the governments are getting involved in speculating about lockdowns, about this or that, or renewed restrictions when they've done what they can do. The companies that have made the vaccines could make an Omicron or a Delta variant vaccine. That's actually in the works right now, from everything I've been hearing. And aside from what they've done so far, there's not much more they can do, and the lockdowns don't really work. It just pushes when the cascade of the virus happens. And I understand initially when the virus made it to U.S. shores and cities and states started locking down, I understand that we didn't really know what we were dealing with. We didn't want to trust the Chinese data. The data out of Italy did concern a lot more older people. Italy's a very old country as far as median age. So I can understand wanting to accumulate some of our own data. Also have the, ramp up PPE and hospital staffing. So I understand the early lockdowns, push the start of the virus hitting hard back so we can prepare more. Absolutely. Now that we know what we're dealing with, we know how to deal with it, and we can accurately predict what's going to happen when someone gets COVID, and there's other treatments from the Pfizer COVID pill that's been developed to ivermectin, vitamin D, monoclonal antibodies, and you can take all that with a grain of salt. I'm not a doctor. I just know that there are doctors that are talking that there's serious anecdotal evidence that this helps quite a bit. There are doctors in big hospitals that have used that stuff that have not lost a COVID patient. So, sure, it's not double-blind, peer-reviewed studies, but who's going to do the placebo in such a time as this? What doctor's going to do a placebo effect study when there's a pandemic going on? So I do get that, sure, we don't know exactly how great it is, but you can take it with a grain of salt. I just wish the government would, federal, state, local, would ease up on everything, because we've been going on this for 2 years. I've had to wear face masks at work since May of 2020 when we went back to work. And I get that, oh, boo-hoo, poor you. I work in up until it gets down into the 50s, I work in a factory that is whatever the outside temperature is in the state of Kentucky, which can have some pretty toasty summers due to the humidity that we get here. It's not quite as bad as Florida, but it gets toasty. So anyway, I just will be glad when this is over, when the government realizes we've done all we can do here. We've tried to incentivize vaccination. There's 100 million people that have had COVID that have recovered from it. There's 50% of the population is vaccinated on top of that. So ease up and let things go back to normal. That's what I got. Take care, folks. Thanks for tuning in.